What's up, folks? So this is normally not my type of video. I don't get involved in YouTube drama, not my thing at all. But today I just saw a video that I just had to react. So I am calling out Casey Neistat. So if you're not familiar with this guy, he is just a mega YouTuber, huge channel, one of the biggest on YouTube that literally gets billions of views. Now, his channel's got a lot of cool stuff. He lives in New York City, he rides around on a boosted board, it's like a robotic skateboard. He does lots of cool camera stuff, lots of cool drone footage, lots of cool travel videos, and lots of cool just like him hanging out with his family, just cute little vlogs like that. But recently he uploaded a video called Who I'm Voting for President. So I'm not going to harp too much on the obvious lack of the missing preposition in there. He's obviously talking about who he's voting for in the next presidential election. He immediately starts off the video by saying Hillary Clinton. And then he goes to talk about how YouTubers are usually so wishy-washy and we don't stand up and say what we want to talk about, and he didn't really want to talk about this but he felt like he had to. Well, no, he did want to talk about this. That's why he posted the video, right? I mean, just let's connect the dots here. He wanted to tell us all why he supports Hillary Clinton, and then he proceeds to go ahead and do that. And it basically just comes down to the idea that, well, he doesn't like Donald Trump. He doesn't like the policies. Well, Donald Trump doesn't really have any policies. He's never held political office. So he really just doesn't like the attitude, I guess, of Donald Trump. He doesn't like Trump's stance or the accusations of his stance against women or immigrants or lots of other things. He just can't stand the idea of a Trump presidency. And so he says, that's why I'm voting for Clinton, because Trump must be stopped. And he views it like he's some knight slaying a dragon, being incredibly noble and honorable in supporting for Hillary Clinton. And first of all, I don't like either one of them. And his assertion that because I don't like one, I should vote for the other one, and that's a moral and ethical thing to do. This is like philosophy 101, guys. Just because one option is bad does not intrinsically make the other option good. This option is what it is, and this one is what it is. If this one changes, it doesn't necessarily change this one. If I'm in a supermarket and I walk up to the fruit display and there's only 2 apples on the display and they're both rotten, I could choose 3 things, really. I could choose to just walk on by and say, well, I came here shopping for food because I chose to come here and I wanted to shop. I'm not required to buy either one of them. Or I could say, you know what? I'm going to eat the apple that I think is the least bad of the 2. Or I could say, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and eat the apple that I think is the most bad. Well, that last option's ridiculous. I don't think anybody out there is voting for the candidate that they think is the most ridiculous and the most bad. So that puts really Casey in the category of pretty much everybody else who's saying, well, I'm voting for this candidate because that candidate's slightly less bad than the other one. Again, not a good comparison to actual real life, because we need to compare each one of those apples not to each other because they don't affect each other. We need to compare those apples to how we are if we don't eat the apple. So his stance is a little bit ridiculous. He even goes as far as to say that basically everybody needs to rally around voting for Hillary Clinton so that somebody like Trump doesn't end up in office. And he says basically that if you don't support Clinton, you are complicit, you are some way responsible for all the bad things that Trump's gonna do. Well, this argument gets you nowhere, because you could just as easily make the argument from the other side. If you say, well, you have to vote Trump because of all the bad things that Hillary's gonna do and all the bad things that she's done. I mean, in politics, she actually has the far worst record, because Trump's this kind of big, ugly unknown, and Hillary, I mean, she was investigated and nearly went to jail. He goes as far as to say that basically, if you're not on this rally cry to support somebody like Hillary Clinton, then you are complicit for Donald Trump being in office and all the bad things that he stands for and all the bad things that he's gonna do. And I think that's a ridiculous statement, because as screwed up as our voting system is, it's just basic fact that you can't vote against somebody. You can either add to one column or add to the other column. You can't subtract from either. So if you're not contributing to one, you're not inherently contributing to the other. You don't have a default vote. That's part of our right to vote. It's not an obligation. You can either add a vote or you can choose to say nothing. And basically it's your right to remain silent, honestly. And so the idea that if you're not supporting somebody like Hillary, you're complicit in every bad thing Trump has ever said is an absolutely stupid argument. In fact, the only thing that can actually make you complicit in a candidate's actions, if they get elected, is voting for that person. So if I vote for Hillary and then she chooses to do something absolutely awful, in a very roundabout way, I mean not extremely personally, but in a roundabout way, I'm somewhat responsible because I said, you know what, I want this person in this leadership position, I stand behind that. And then if she does something horrible, I kind of have to live with the fact that, you know what, I stood behind this person who did something horrible. And this works both ways, of course. If I vote for Trump and then he does something absolutely horrible, I kind of have to own the fact that at one time I said, you know what, I want this person to be a leader. So the only way to be complicit in these horrible worlds is not by avoiding voting for somebody, but by actually voting for somebody. Neistat is basically calling on all YouTubers to say, let's not be wishy-washy, let's talk about these real issues, let's make a strong stance and let's just get it out there. So that's exactly why I'm doing this, Casey. I want to call out that your idea of let's support Hillary or else all these bad things with Trump, that idea is completely absurd. And everybody who's saying the exact same thing for Donald Trump, saying let's vote for Trump purely because we don't like these other things about Hillary, it's also kind of absurd. So now that we've kind of looked at the only way to be complicit in the actions of a candidate are by voting for them, really that only makes two options where you could not be complicit for the actions of Hillary or Trump. Personally, I don't really like either. So if I don't like either, I'm not going to side with the lesser of two evils, because siding with one evil to fight another, I believe, is wrong. I believe it doesn't make you better. If you look at the kind of the path you're on and you say, well, I could go downhill a little bit or way downhill, neither one enhance the path that you're on. So keep staying the course, keep going on a positive direction. Do not choose evil, even if you are afraid of what you deem to be a greater evil. Just try as best as you can not to choose evil. The idea that one candidate is bad does not make the other candidate good. It's almost like everybody's saying, let's throw a kitten in a blender, and then the other crowd saying, no, that's far too gory and we don't need that. Let's just drown the kitten in a pond. And I feel like I'm a lone voice over here saying, let's just not kill kittens. If you don't like one option, it doesn't make the other option a good one. Whether you are a paramedic or a rescue worker or just some normal guy, I think it's very valuable to live your life saying, you know what? Today, at a minimum, I want to do no harm. If I can help other people, if I can make other people's life great, that would be awesome. But I think a minimum standard would be if I can live my life and do no harm, that would be acceptable. And if I'm gonna be complicit for voting for Hillary Clinton and all her actions, or Trump and all his actions, I can't possibly wash my hands and say I did no harm, because I am in some way at fault. So what does this mean? It means people like Casey Neistat, who are saying you all need to support Hillary or else all these bad things happen with Trump, it means he is siding with the actions of Hillary, and in some way he is kind of responsible for that if he's actually voting for that. So where do we go from here? What do our options actually look like? Well, if you don't like Trump, don't vote for Trump. If you don't like Hillary, don't vote for Hillary. Don't feel obligated or pressured by the other camp, because believe me, they have a whole lot of similarities and they're just looking for which avenue did they implement them. Don't feel obligated by the other camp to vote for one candidate. They are both fear-mongering. They are both manipulative. So me personally, I can't stand Donald Trump and I can't stand Hillary Clinton. I can't watch the debates. I know enough about them now that watching them debate is just like watching two monkeys sling poo at each other. And it doesn't make my life any better, that's for sure. So I would prefer to just wash my hands and say, you know what? I can't vote for either one because I don't want to be responsible for what happens with either one. And you know what? One of them is going to get elected. And I'm pretty sure I know which one. That's a whole nother topic for another video. But at the end of the day, I want to say I'm not responsible for that person getting elected and for all the awful, horrible things that person is leading. So what do our options look like? Casey just rails on the idea that not voting is just a horrible decision, that standing idly by is a horrible thing to do. I would completely disagree. I would say that it's a completely valid option because you have a right to vote. It's not an obligation. If you were obligated to vote, it wouldn't be a right. If you were obligated to do something, you don't have the freedom to choose otherwise. If you were required to say certain words, you wouldn't have the freedom of speech. It's just a fundamental misunderstanding of basic rights. So if you have a vote, you also can choose not to vote. So if you don't like Trump, don't vote for Trump. If you don't like Hillary, don't vote for Hillary. Don't feel pressured by the other camp. So if I don't like Trump and I don't like Hillary, what do my options look like? Well, there's Gary Johnson, there's Jill Stein. I personally don't really like either one of them at all. I think actually either one of them would be better than Hillary or Trump. But not enough for me to say, yep, I want this person to be my leader, because in fact, there's not going to be a person like that, I don't think. I stand for freedom and liberty and personal responsibility. At the end of the day, I believe it's wrong to initiate violence on somebody, and you should do what you say you want to do. And I feel like that idea is most in line with the Libertarian Party, not necessarily Gary Johnson, but he's the absolute closest to that idea. So my choices really now are, do I vote for Gary Johnson so that conversation at least is picked up and people start talking about that? I don't think he has a lot of chance of winning, but at the end of the day, it brings a lot of conversation to those topics. If people say, well, who didn't vote for Trump? Who didn't vote for Clinton? What do they believe in? How do we reach those people? It provides some interesting research. Or I just basically fall off the map and I don't vote. So those are my two choices. So this was a little bit about me and my political beliefs, but I'm also calling you out, Casey. The ideas that you're spreading on your huge channel, you've got some good points, but a lot of ridiculousness that's holding them all together. And you called out YouTubers and vloggers to talk about these ideas. And so that's what I'm doing. Because at the end of the day, I believe in peace and freedom, and I'm not going to support one form of tyranny over another. So Casey, maybe you watch this, maybe not, who knows. Casey's followers and subscribers, I hope you watch this. I hope you learned something from this. My subscribers, I hope you learned something from this. But at the end of the day, we just have ourselves and our own freedom and our own responsibility to make good choices. So until next time, stay safe, be free, and never stop seeking adventure.